What sort of second-term president do you want Obama to become if he wins re-election? That's a great question, because I was going to talk about the drug war. There was a big story in the paper this week about the drug war. There was a commission from some flaming liberals like George Shultz. Remember George Shultz? Ooh. He's got to be 110, this guy. I mean, he was in the... He's still on. And you know what? He deserves a big pat on the back, because this commission basically said, I loved it, they phrased it this way. They said, politicians should do publicly what they acknowledge privately. Because I've heard so many politicians, soon as the camera's off, they will say to you, yes, the drug war is a failure, that's not the way to handle it. They said, just acknowledge what you tell us in private, publicly.
You know, in truth, more conservatives have spoken out on it.
Yeah.
Lately.
That's true.
Yeah.
And Obama opposed this, by the way.
Absolutely.
William F. Buckley.
Yeah. But anyway, to get to the point of the question,
right.
I'm hoping that this is one of those things that Obama knows he can't touch in his first term, but in his second term, he might touch something like the drug war.
Well, let me just say, he touched it a bit in the first term, which is to say that he did pass and sign legislation that equalized the crack and powder cocaine situation, which really was having an enormous, it still is, having an enormously disparate impact. So it's not as though he hasn't touched this at all, but certainly he hasn't, I mean, as the African-American president being called a non-American, and given that both crime and welfare have been so racialized since the 1980s as ideas, the idea that the black guy would come in and say, okay, you know, we're done with crime, you know, with the drug war now, it's very sort of like Nas, if I ruled the world.
But I feel,
he just can't really do that.
No, I know, but I do feel kind of bad for the guy who's rotting in prison, who heard first that Clinton can't do it because Clinton has a sex problem, so he can't be the guy who's getting blown and also wants to smoke pot, and now Obama can't be the guy, I'm black and I also can't be for pot. It's like, when can a guy come into office?
So much of this happening at the state.
Nixon could do it. That's right. Nixon could have gone to Haight-Ashbury.
The real problem is that so long as there are hack politicians who want to say 3 strikes you're out and come up with these slogans that are not thoughtful, I think we need to actually push them further. I think we need to be even worse than 3 strikes you're out. I think it has to be like charge the mound you're out, so it's only one time. I think it has to be like MMA tap out you're out, even more so.
I think you can't have one size fits all on this, because there are some people that are violent, they have violent backgrounds, they need to be treated differently. I'm totally for prevention. We know drug courts work, we know prevention works, but there are some people that are going to be recidivists, they're going to be on the street. And in fact, one of the reasons why crime has been coming down, violent crime has been coming down in America, and it's defied the odds, because as the economy deteriorates, generally you see more violent crime. People are saying, one of the studies says, is because of the fact that...
Well, we do put more people in jail than any other country.
But they're not a bunch of violent offenders. They're not violent offenders for the most part.
No, I mean,
it's mostly non-violent drug crime.
But either we're the greatest people in the world, or we're the people who somehow put more of our people in jail. How can we still be the greatest people in the world?
We're not the greatest people in the world.
But we
have 2 million in jail. We have 2 million in jail, which percentage-wise is more than China.
More than anyone.
And we also are one of the only 4 countries in the world that put children to death. And we also put learning disabled people to death, which is fucked up, if you really think about it.
It is a little fucked up.
It really is.
But it also goes to Bill's point, though. It goes to Bill's point about private industry. I mean, we've privatized it so that prisons are profit-driven. And anything that's profit-driven is going to put more people in it. Because that's how they're making their money. So what we've done is we've said, okay, if we take this whole group of people and incarcerate them, then they're not looking for work. That will drop the unemployment rate. And, by the way, all these unskilled workers who don't have jobs building bridges, we'll put them to work guarding the other guys. Right. And so downstate Illinois ends up making jobs for unskilled white workers and locking up unskilled black workers, and therefore you start creating some jobs. And so we actually have an employment issue.
There's no votes to combat alcoholism and drug abuse. You know, that's the reality.
Right.
You know, you've met the enemy, it's us.
It doesn't.
You know, who's coming out to talk about, you know, alcoholism, even after all these years, is a plague, and people still don't want to talk about it.
And you know what? One of these studies, by the way, that's asking this question, and you're right, sociologists are baffled why the crime rate went down even in a recession, because usually it goes up. The theory was, well, people are poor, they're out of work, they have to rob you. You know what it is? They stopped putting lead in paint.
No, that's one
really?
fact. Yeah.
Really?
And
that's one fact.
Kids stop eating paint chips with lead, and that makes them violent. Something as simple as that.
Yeah.
Stop making kids violent.
Well,
no, I'm not kidding.
Full disclosure, I own 3 private prisons myself,
Yes.
personally.
And you paint them with lead?
I got to tell you, we employ a lot of good people. Yes, we abuse some prisoners, but it's helping the economy.
Of course it is.
Just think of the big picture. That's all
right,
I'm saying.
The big picture around it.
Yeah, yeah.
This is a question I was about to ask and we didn't get to it. Is Germany making the right choice in their decision to abandon nuclear power? This, I think, is really interesting. See, Germany, unlike this country, can gather in new information, adapt, and then change their ways. That's completely foreign to us.
Yeah.
But I think when Germany, the most technically advanced people ever, you know, when they say, hey, you know what? This ain't worth it, nuclear power.
Okay, but not so cool, you know, because you know what's been happening in Germany? Coal prices have been spiking because they're thinking they're going to replace nuclear power, which is non-carbon emitting, with coal, which is highly dirty. So, you know, everyone wants to go to heaven, but they don't want to die. So they don't want nuclear power. They don't want to drill for natural gas.
But I don't
they don't want transmission lines.
I don't think Germany's plan is to go back to coal.
I was just actually, we're shooting a movie right now in Berlin, and I was there for 2 weeks, and it's crazy driving around that country because you see 2 things. You see giant windmills everywhere. You see solar power everywhere, and you also see factories. And we kept laughing like, oh my God, they make their own shoes here. They make their own belts.
What's that?
They didn't outsource everything. And not only that, they're a very profitable country, and they have a great sort of equal distribution of wealth. They have health care. I talked to my driver, which sounds really gross, but I talked to my driver about it, and he described how unemployment works, that if you can't get a job, you go through tier to tier to tier to find a job, and then if you can't get one, they give you $1 a day and you clean up by the side of the road, but you get unemployment.
And they have a big government.
A big
and they
government.
have a big old
fat government.
Big old ginormous government.
Yeah, they do.
But they expect people to do something.
They expect people to do something.
That's the contract.
Liberals are fine with that.
I don't think that's, I don't
No,
think that.
come on.
No, we don't,
really, are you?
I think that's one of the areas.
On.
No, listen, I think if that was really on the table, when I was in Congress, I had in a public housing reform bill, you know, the people who were getting aid, getting help, not paying any rent at all, weren't students, weren't taking care of a parent that was sick, all these exemptions. They'd give 7 hours a month to their community, to their building, do whatever they want to.
Okay.
It was a polarizing.
But here's what I want to know. For the idle rich for whom you gave enormous tax cuts, what did they have to do for that? I mean, how many hours did they have to give? Because the issue is if you are rich. But if you're rich, but my point is if you're rich, the government will underwrite your idleness.
No, the government doesn't give you the money.
But if you are poor, they will punish you for being a stay-at-home mom.
We still need the
literally.
there, by the way.
I just think that's
Why are
we talk about that? We've got the first stake on the line.
You've already talked about it.
I've completely lost control. Good night, everybody. We'll see you next week. Thank you.